Let's be honest. If the disciples were taking a pop quiz on Jesus' teachings in chapters 15 and 16, they might not be bringing home the gold. I mean, they just watched Jesus feed 4,000 people with a few loaves, and then panic because they forgot to bring bread? Don't worry, I'm not here to pick on the disciples too much, but Matthew's chapters 15 and 16 really puts their growing pains on full display. Let's dive into it. Welcome back to The Late Disciple, where we explore the gospel with fresh eyes, honest questions, and a little grace for all the times we just don't get it. I'm David, and today we're unpacking Matthew chapter 16, a chapter full of signs, misunderstandings, bold declarations, and one unforgettable rebuke. We begin with the Pharisees and the Sadducees coming together, which is interesting because these groups don't typically get along. But if there's one thing that unites enemies, it's a shared desire to take down Jesus. They again ask him for a sign. Not just another miracle, no, they want something cosmic and undeniable, a sign from heaven itself. As usual, Jesus sees their shenanigans for what they are, and he says, "You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times?" In other words, you can predict a thunderstorm, but you're spiritually blind to what's happening right in front of you. Then Jesus references Jonah again, just like he did back in Matthew 12. The sign he offers is the sign of Jonah, a prophet swallowed up for 3 days and nights before returning. It's a quiet but unmistakable foreshadowing of his own death and resurrection. And with that, Jesus leads them. Next, Jesus and the disciples cross over to the other side of the lake. And that's where we get another classic disciple moment. Jesus warns them, "Beware the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." And their response? Is this because we forgot to bring bread? Really? But Jesus is patient. He reminds them, again, that he literally just fed thousands of people with scraps. Bread isn't the issue. No, Jesus is using yeast metaphorically, just like in his earlier parables. Yeast spreads and works subtly, affecting the whole batch of dough. And in this case, he's warning them against the false teachings and corrupt influence of the religious elite. Hypocrisy and bad doctrine might start small, but they grow and infect everything. Now we get to a major turning point. Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they rattle off the rumors. John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets. Then he asks them the real question. "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" And Simon speaks up. "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus blesses him for this. Jesus had never explicitly taught his full identity to his disciples. This was revealed to Simon by God. And Jesus says, "You are Peter." Yes, finally, Simon gets his new name of Peter. So, Jesus says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Let's take a pause. "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." This line has been the subject of many debates. Some have suggested that Peter is the rock upon which the church is built. But context matters here. Jesus isn't saying Peter is the foundation of the church. He's referring to Peter's confession that Jesus is the Christ as the foundation. Also interesting, this is the first time that the word church appears in the Gospels, and Matthew is the only Gospel writer who uses it at all. In Greek, it's ecclesia, meaning the called out assembly. Jesus is laying the groundwork for a new kind of community, one built on faith in him, not religious hierarchy. Things begin to shift after this. First, he instructs the disciples not to mention to anyone this new revelation that he is the Messiah. Next, now that the disciples know who Jesus is, he begins to tell them what that actually means. He must go to Jerusalem, suffer, be killed, and rise again on the third day. And Peter, formerly Simon, takes Jesus aside and rebukes him. "Never, Lord, this shall never happen to you." In reply, Jesus turns and says, "Get behind me, Satan." That's a pretty dramatic fall from grace. But Jesus isn't being cruel. He's identifying the spirit behind Peter's objection. Peter is thinking like a man, not like God. His words, however well-intentioned, are tempting Jesus to avoid the cross, just like Satan did in the wilderness. And Jesus isn't having it. And then he tells all of his disciples, "If you want to follow me, you have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow. You'll lose your life to save it." That's the cost of discipleship. It's worth noting why Jesus tells them not to spread the news that he's the Messiah. Back then, most Jews thought the Messiah would be a warrior king who'd overthrow Rome. If word got out too soon, the movement would be misunderstood, or worse, hijacked for political revolution. Jesus wasn't here to claim Caesar's throne. He came to claim hearts. Matthew ends the chapter with a curious statement from Jesus. "Some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." This is a reference to the Transfiguration, which comes next in chapter 17, in which 3 of the disciples are about to witness a preview of its glory. Matthew 16 is another roller coaster in storytelling. The religious leaders demand a sign, but Jesus gives them a clue. The disciples misunderstand a metaphor. Again. Peter has his best and worst moments within 5 minutes. And Jesus begins preparing them for what's to come. Not glory first, but suffering. It's a reminder that following Jesus means rethinking everything. What success looks like, what strength looks like, what Messiah means. In our next episode, we'll climb a mountain and witness one of the most mysterious moments in the Gospels, the Transfiguration. I hope you'll join me for that. If this video gave you something to think about, hit the like button, leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed for more. And remember, we are all disciples. It is never too late.